Hi everyone, welcome to this video case study. This case study is about the Satyam scandal. I'm glad you can join us. My name is Dr. Wing Lam from U21 Global. The Satyam scandal came to the public's attention on January 7th, 2009. This was when the founder and chairman of Satyam, Ramalinga Raju, resigned in a scandal that involved a billion-dollar fraud. This sent shockwaves throughout the entire globe, and it was the first incident of major corporate governance in an India-based company. Up until then, Satyam had a tremendous growth story. Founded in 1987, Satyam basically epitomized what corporate India was all about, and it rode upon the IT powerhouse that India was becoming in the global arena. Satyam built its business around three key areas: IT services, business process outsourcing, and software products. In 2008, it had over 50,000 employees across the globe. It was considered India's fourth largest IT services company, and 1 in every 2 Fortune 500 companies was said to be a Satyam client. Of course, up until that point, Satyam, the corporate earnings were incredibly positive. In the financial year ending March 2008, Satyam actually reported an impressive 46.3% rise in revenues to 2.1 billion. In the fiscal year 2009, earnings were said to be even stronger. Of course, such statements were later found out to be entirely fictitious. Now, what's interesting is that Raju publicly admitted to fraud. He sent a letter to the Satyam board saying quite explicitly that he had overstated Satyam's profits over a period of several years, and the fraud was estimated to be in the order of $1 billion US. In his letter to the board, Raju states that he acted alone, but questions were immediately being raised about the involvement of other Satyam executives as well as Satyam's auditors. Now, why was fraud committed in the first place? Well, Satyam, like lots of other major companies there, was under ever-increasing pressure to perform. In particular, it was trying to catch up to some of the key competitors, which included Tata, Infosys, and Wipro. And this relentless pursuit to be the #1 IT company caused Satyam to overinflate its profits. Now, this was done over several years, and every time it was done, it became more difficult to backtrack. In Raju's own words, it was like riding a tiger, not knowing how to get off without being eaten. The fraud had gotten so extensive, there was a gap in the real assets that Satyam had and the assets it was reporting in its books, and the gap was roughly $1 billion US. Now, Raju had attempted to cover this up by acquiring some real assets, and the way he tried to do this was to acquire two companies, Maytaz Infrastructure and Maytaz Properties, both companies owned and controlled by the Raju family and worth approximately $1 billion US. The name Maytaz, incidentally, is the word Satyam spelled backwards. The acquisition was dropped when Satyam shareholders protested and questions were raised as to why such an acquisition was needed in the first place. Investigations by India's Central Bureau of Investigation suggests that there was falsified accounting on a massive scale. Their report highlights a number of irregularities, including dual accounting books, thousands of forged invoices, fake bank statements, and thousands of unnecessary employees and auditors who were basically paid attractive fees in order to keep quiet. So the extent of the fraud was incredibly detailed and quite significant. To conclude this case, charges of cheating, forgery, and falsification of accounts have been filed against Raju, two of his brothers who held positions at Satyam, and also a number of other senior Satyam executives. And it's fairly likely that they'll be spending a lot of time in jail. Satyam has since been acquired by Tech Mahindra, who have also taken on the existing accounts of Satyam. The whole incident is rather embarrassing for India. It's been dubbed India's version of Enron and has put corporate governance on the spotlight in India. The Satyam case raises a number of interesting questions for discussion. First off, what factors allowed Raju to commit fraud on such a large scale? Secondly, a founding chairman like Raju would almost certainly have yielded a lot of influence. What could have been done to prevent him from doing what he did? What should have been the role of the Satyam board and Satyam auditors? Why were they ineffective in carrying out their role? Finally, one might argue that corporate governance is actually less mature in developing countries such as India and China. Would you agree with this point of view? Thank you for listening.